Martha, good morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So we're here because on October 9th, 2021, you're going to have a concert in downtown San Jose presented by the South Bay Guitar Society. So we're having a little chat for the audience to get to know you a little bit. And so today I wanted to explore three themes with you. And one is about yourself as a guitarist, you're a professor of Loyola Marymount and Cal State Fullerton. And your hat as the GFA president, and a little bit about the GFA. And then the last thing, if you would, I wanted to touch a little bit about your career versus mom, that kind of a balance. And
Absolutely.
especially with that last one, I even had a couple of students from my music appreciation class who asked about that. So yeah.
Hey, good. Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah. And then if we have time, I wanted to throw some more lightning round questions because yeah. Okay.
They're always interesting. Okay, I'm ready.
Yeah. So let's start. Could we go back to around 1999, something like that? Leading right before you won the GFA. Could you share with us a little bit about that background?
Yeah. So while I was doing my doctorate at USC, which was from 96 to 2000, I graduated in spring of 2000. I started to compete in international competitions. I had done little local and one national one before that, but I started to compete internationally in my doctorate. So I did one each year, the first 3 years. And then my last year of my doctorate, I did 5, 6 competitions. I don't know, I've lost track now. It's really hard to compete and do a doctorate at the same time because the requirements of the degree are pretty intense. And to do a lot of competitions, they have required repertoire, and yet you have things you have to learn for school. So for me, it was really only possible to do one a year with everything else that I was having to do. So I was just building my my competition experience and my chops and my comfort level on a stage and trying to learn how to be a concert artist. And I was fortunate. I think I chose well and I competed well. All the ones that I did, I made the finals in, I think, all of them. I didn't win any of them. But I was learning a lot, and I was, meeting peers who are now my friends, 25 years later, which is really the cool part of what we do. But I was just starting to understand how to be a concert artist through competition. And I know there's a lot of people that, poo-poo on competitions because, we're an art, not a sport. But the truth is I actually learned a lot about being an artist through having those opportunities to be on stage in front of big audiences and playing for fabulous, artists who were on the jury who gave me invaluable feedback. So I learned a lot as a concert artist through competing. I like to think I don't define myself by my competition experience, but the truth is winning the GFA, it certainly is a defining life moment, right? But if I had never won, imagine, if I had never won, I feel like I actually would have been the same artist from all the experience. I just, wouldn't have had the same opportunities. So I'm really grateful for that experience. So yeah, I was just kind of building up, finishing school, building up and looking at what a career in music would look like, trying to actively build teaching opportunities and starting to play concerts kind of in the Western United States, mostly up and down the West Coast.
I have a couple of students listening, and a lot of them are music appreciation students. So they might not know what the GFA is and they don't understand. Could you share why this is such a big event?
Yeah. So the GFA stands for Guitar Foundation of America, and it's been around since 1973. It's the largest organization internationally that supports the classical guitar, its literature, performance, scholarship, etc. So the GFA does a lot of things. I've been a member of the GFA certainly since 1994, but maybe even since 1990. I started reading Soundboard in 1990, but I think I might have just read it in my school library and maybe didn't join until later. But so I've been a member of the GFA for a long time, and I appreciated really what the organization does for the instrument. So one of the things, in addition to creating this quarterly scholarly journal, which is called Soundboard, what I just referenced. The organization holds an annual international convention and competition. And it really brings together the biggest minds and performers and enthusiasts from around the world once a year, to see concerts and attend lectures, and to really continue to build that and nurture that community. So it's been the conventions have been going since the early 80s. And I attended a couple. I attended one that was in Los Angeles when I had just moved out here. And I attended as a volunteer. I was driving artists around and selling CDs and opening doors and at the concert hall. And so I attended as a volunteer, and I was like, this thing's pretty cool. And then that was actually my first big competition, was in 1997. I competed in the GFA competition, which is in my mind, and I am biased, in my mind, it is the most desirable, most coveted prize in the world of classical guitar. So I competed in 1997, my first time competing internationally. And I don't know, I think I was at the level of a semifinalist, but then I was so happy to be in the semifinals that I don't know, I relaxed, I let loose, and I crushed it. And I had like the best day of my life in the semis, and I made the finals. And then I was way outclassed in the finals. It was an amazing finals that year. And Judical Perrois won, Franco Platino was second, and Jose Antonio Escobar was third. And these were all, fabulous guitarists who had amazing careers. So I was just happy to be in the same sentence with those guys. But I really learned a lot just from being there. So GFA has this competition every year. I competed in 97, went back in 2000, won the competition, and then part of the competition is a big tour. So I did the big tour that came the next year. And then after that, about 6 months after I finished my tour, they asked me to join the board. And next thing you know, I'm kind of rather knee deep in the or neck deep, perhaps, in the organization, which has been, so, it's come full circle in my career. It's been a big part of my life.
And now you're the president. So I'm going to touch on that in a bit. But you're very modest, because I've listened to a bunch of your interviews. And one of the things that makes the GFA so big is the winning the competition is the 50 plus concert series, right? Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's this huge opportunity. So when you win the competition, you have a few months to prepare a recording contract comes with it. So you have some time to pull together some repertoire. You go to Canada, you record this CD with fabulous production team. And then about a year later, after a lot of planning, you begin a big tour. It's primarily North America. My tour was exclusively Canada, Mexico, and United States, with most of the concerts being in the United States. Occasionally, some of the tours have gone outside the United States, but it's really focused on North America. And it's this amazing learning opportunity. You have a pretty grueling schedule, flying, you play. One night you teach the class, the next morning you go straight to the airport, you hope you make your connection, you get there, you play the next night. It's intense. It's an incredible artistic experience. You're often, because you're kind of the young new guy, you're often, sometimes you get put up in a really swank hotel and you're like, sweet, look at me. And sometimes you're sleeping in, like a princess bed, with the dog barking in the hallway. I by the way, if I have children now, I've had princess beds and dogs barking in the hallway too. So nothing against the host that, put me in their princess bed. But yeah, the experience is it's very much just starting to get to know what it's like to be a touring artist. And sometimes it is actually glamorous. Most of the time, it's just work I love, but and all the time it's hard, right? But I loved every minute of it, but it's a job. So.
And one more thing about the competition, because I've done a few competitions, and I was lucky enough to get into some finals and win a couple too. I didn't do well in the 2008 San Francisco GFA. I totally sucked. It was all my fault. It was completely my fault. I overestimated my abilities and I underestimated how good other people were.
Yeah.
But I think that honesty is really important.
Yes.
And so the value of competition is really my question for you, because not only if you win it, you gain all this great stuff, but there's the process, like you said, learning about how to be on stage and this kind of stuff. So what was USC like, or what was Scott Tennant, your teacher's attitude towards that whole thing?
I adore Scott Tennant. He is such an important part of my life and such a beautiful person. And he really helped me to find my voice. I think, I first of all, I met Scott first when I was about 15. I think I was 15. And I always just enjoyed our interactions. They were, master classes, summer festivals, things like that. But I spent, quite a bit of time with him at these things. And I always thought, he's a cool guy. I don't know him very well because he's a little hard to get to know. But I always thought he was a cool guy. And I went and studied with Manuel Barreto for my bachelor's, which was, wonderful. He's amazing. And then when it was time for a doctorate, I thought, I just felt like I needed something entirely different. I felt like I was perhaps a little too in my own head and a little bit too intense. And Scott, I don't know, he doesn't seem like he's in his head. He seems like he's pretty chill. And I needed that. And I also knew that I needed like some power, and I think of him as incredibly powerful. So I felt like, he was a full flip of the coin from what I had been coming from, and that I needed the flip, right? I needed Manuel and I needed Scott. So I think, for me, my experience with him and that time at USC was hugely transformational. I was already a pretty strong player when I arrived, but I actually didn't believe that I was. And I also didn't really know how to work yet. And his way of kind of coaching me through. So number one, I think it was, I hit him at the right time in my life that I was ready to work, but also his kind of practical approach to, well, you just sit down and you do it 10 times, and then you turn the metronome up and you do it 10 more times, but you only do it perfectly, which that part I had in my head, but I didn't quite have the goal setting. He had me write out goals, what's your 10-year plan? What's your 5-year plan? What's your 1-year plan? Okay, so 1 year, you better start planning now if you want that repertoire to be ready. So then we wrote out week by week goals, and the goal setting was really helpful for me. So he somehow was exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed it. And I just remember him validating me in ways that I think I also needed at that moment. Quite often after I would play something, I would, kind of sit there thinking that was terrible. Oh, he's not going to like it at all. And then he'd say, that was great. Wow, really? and I think I kind of needed that to build some confidence in myself. So I appreciated that. But I also remember he could be tough on me when it was necessary. I mean, he knew how to tell me what I needed. So the balance was just kind of just right. He also was really great. I was, at that point trying to develop my career, and he had a lot of, he was developing his career in Los Angeles as well. So he knows this area. I was in this area. So it was really helpful. He told me, he was one of the first ones to say, you should go up to American Guitar Society, right? I should, go up there, just play. And that's where I met you. That's where I met so many people in this community. And it was a great chance. I would get up and have a chance to try some things out. I met people. I built my skills on that stage, right? And that was Scott sending me there. And he gave me just kind of great career advice when talking. He said, how do I build a concert career? He said, you got to, start local, right? Start in your hometown, play everywhere that you can possibly play. And I feel like, there's hardly a place in LA that somebody says they're playing that I haven't already played there. Because I've played, except Disney Hall, I haven't played it. That's a really big venue. But most of the, all the small ones, every one of them I've played there, and probably 3 times, right? And LA is a big area. So I think he really was just instrumental in getting me to think about how, from the ground up, you build your experience, and it makes you ready for the things that can come next if you can earn them. So.
Yeah, I really love that point because you've mentioned it before. You said you played a bunch of free concerts. I think this was the tone-based video, and you said you put those hours in.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
the way I learned about that was I was in Boston at the time, and I won the Boston Guitar Fest. And what happened was my recording engineer, Vince Go, he said, okay, well, now you got your CD. Now you got to go promote yourself. And then this is what you do. You the way you practice, 1 hour a day, you write emails. And then 20, you send out 100, 20 of them will come back. And then 2 of them will say yes. And then I took so many free gigs. And then there's like that. I'm so glad you talked about it because there's an unsexy side about all of this.
Absolutely.
Like I played for 2 people, made no money, and then
I think I did. My lowest might have been 4, might have been 3 though, so we're very close. Yeah.
Yeah. And since you brought up American Guitar Society, are they still around?
Yes, they are. They're doing Zoom meetings now, which I haven't popped in on one. I really should. I'm still on their email list, and I love that. It's obviously that started with the pandemic, and I don't know whether they're able to go back in person now and just haven't chosen to, because I know a lot of people have found new audience base in Zoom. So I'm not connected enough with them to know if they have the ability to go live and just have chosen not to. Or if it's just still kind of a mandated thing. But it seems like they're still, really providing that community service, which I love.
And since you touched on that, and Scott and yourself, I wanted to share with the audience sort of what happened, what I took away from you, and also what I took away from Scott, because I was an undergrad at the time at Cal State Northridge, and that's where American Guitar Society is based. And so I would think it was 1999, 2000. So this was right before you won the GFA. I remember on at least 2 occasions, and I remember the pieces you played. It was the Mertz Elegy, the Mertz Elegy, and Bach, the E minor Prelude. The what is it, 997?
997, yeah.
99, whatever. It doesn't matter. So anyways, and I remember because I was coming from Taiwan at the time, and this was before YouTube, for all the young people out there. So there was no
before YouTube.
Yeah. So there was no information. I had no sense of where I was as a player. And so to be able to hear you and I think Kevin Cooper from USC, you guys, like a bunch of you came over to American Guitar Society to play in the monthly open mics. And that was really my first exposure outside of Cal State Northridge and outside of Taiwan, to hear, okay, I guess, all right, well, I could work on that. I could get better at that. Well, that's really, I don't know if I could ever do that. And but that was really important, because always after the open mic, we'd have like juice and biscuits or whatever.
Yes.
And
cookies and juice.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so that's when I had a chance to talk to you, and then you gave me a lot of advice at the time. And then a couple months later, I was playing out in Alhambra 5P. So a couple months later, you were doing a masterclass at Loyola Marymount, and I played for you, and I played Tres Apuntes by Brouwer. And you left me with the tiny little bit of this encouragement that stayed with me to this day. You said to me, you need a better guitar. And that was one of those moments where like, oh, okay, I guess I deserve one. I guess it was one of those, and so that's never left me. And I remember my professor at the time was Ron Borzon and Ron Purcell. And Ron Borzon asked me, so what did she say? I said, well, she said I needed a better guitar. And I think Ron Borzon said something like, good.
Duh.
Yeah. And Scott Tennant, I went to his house twice. This was in his, I don't know if he's still in Pasadena, but I played for him. And I remember seeing that face. And I remember that feeling I had after I played the Bach thing for him. He said, there was a silence, and I thought, God, by God, he must hate it.
He didn't like it.
He didn't like it. And he sort of slowly went into it. And then by the end of the lesson, I was like, I think he liked my playing. And then a week later, I was speaking to in my lesson with Ron Borzon, and Borzon said, oh, I just spoke to Scott. He likes your playing. I said, really? And that was nice. Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So as a teacher, it's like it's so hard to know, but it's these little things. So
for sure.
Anyways, moving on I want to talk about the GFA a bit, because the competition, one thing that I've been able to do with my students is, because all the competitions have gone online, I've been able to do these assignments with them and say, hey, here are the finalists, the 4 or 5 of them, who would you pick? And then making listening assignments for the music appreciation class and for the guitar class. And
Cool.
that's one of the things that came out of COVID that I didn't expect at all. But, you know, so can you speak to internally within GFA, have you talked about what's the purpose of the guitar competition going forward?
Yeah, so excuse me, we had different results last year from this year in terms of what we did. So excuse me, last year we ran the prelims online, and then we canceled the semis and finals because we knew there was no way we could do it in person. And that wasn't the only reason. We talked about it a lot. We also knew that there was no way we could give that winner a tour, that it wasn't going to happen. And this is such at the core of what's important and meaningful about the competition. And it could never happen. We already were going to be 1 year behind because Johann Smith, who won in 2019, he still hasn't had a tour, right? But we still need to give Johann a tour. We can't just keep piling on winners that we can't book concerts for because the world's not playing concerts right now. So really that was at the core of why we cut. I didn't want to crown a winner only online, right? That I could have been swayed on, but it was the tour. It just was, no, not going to happen. So last year we canceled. This year we're going now. It's not ideal, but I actually think we've made the best of the situation. So we had the prelims online, semis, we were waiting to see, but nope, couldn't do them in person. It was too difficult. So we did those also online, but we increased the, and we had planned this from the get-go. We increased the challenge for the performers. So for the prelims and for most virtual competitions, the competitors just have to, do a, start to finish video, one still shot, right? But they could, in theory, if the program is 20 minutes long, they could record it, every day, 3 times a day for the next week and give us their best recording. They still have to meet that challenge, right? But they could just keep trying and trying and trying. And that takes away some of the pressure of a live performance. If you can just go back and try it again, right? And the reality is, if I have to play a concert, when I play a concert next Saturday night, if I don't like how it turns out, I can't say, hey guys, come back again tomorrow night because I can do better. That's not how it goes, right? So performing artists have to be able to perform on the spot. And so we wanted, by the time we got to the semis, to up the game. So we used a platform that allowed us to have a timed token. So the competitors, when they were ready to record, they set up their whole recording space. Some of them rented, nice churches, and some of them did it in their bedroom. It really, at the end of the day, it's what, the music is what matters, but I'm glad that they, took care. So they set up their space, and when they're ready to go, they log in to their portal, which they had created in advance, and they click start. And from the moment they click start in their portal, they had a certain amount of time. Their program was 30 minutes. I think we gave them 50 minutes to submit it. So they're recording it independently on their own device, but then they have to click upload within 50 minutes. So there's no time to run it twice. There's no time to run it endlessly, right? So it's a live performance, right? One shot live performance. Still no audience. So that was the semis. We did that. And then we really, 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 really wanted to do a live finals. And we're sort of doing a live finals, but it became too difficult. So we had 2 competitors based in North America and 2 competitors based in Europe. And one of the North Americans couldn't leave the US for some visa reasons right now. And one of the Europeans couldn't get into the US. So we were stuck. So our solution is we have 2 of our finalists competing here in Los Angeles in a couple weeks, and 2 competing in Brussels. So they'll each share a half concert basically with a live audience, and then the jury has to adjudicate it virtually. So it's closer, like they are performing live. I think that's the important part. We can't get the jury. I can't fly the jury back and forth between LA and Brussels. That sadly, I would love to be a part of that jury that gets flown from LA to Brussels to complete my job. But anyway, so they're going to perform live. It will be adjudicated remotely. I think it's a pretty good compromise, and I'm really excited to have another winner finally. So.
When I saw the announcement, because it's Antigone,
Yeah.
So when I saw that announcement, I thought, this is so smart.
Oh, thank you.
I loved it. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm excited about it. I think it's as good a compromise as we can manage. The performers, I think, are all really excited to be able to perform live. Nobody wants to keep playing on Zoom. I mean, we've done it. Of course, it's better than not doing anything. I agree with that. But it's so much better to be in front of a live audience. And actually next Saturday will be my first live audience concert since February 2020. So I'm like beyond excited to be able to do this live, because this whole Zoom thing, is awesome and awful. It's all of the above, right? So being back in person, with my students this year in school, it's kind of amazing. And there are things we learned about Zoom that work really well, that sometimes even can be better than live. You can take advantage of certain aspects of it, but playing a concert, no, that's not one of them. It's better to be in the same space.
Yeah, for sure. One element that's interesting is how with the San Francisco Omni, with the Omni series, how they have like an artist chat after the concert, even though the concert's pre-recorded, but people were interacting with David Russell, interacting with Anna Vidovic. So yeah, you're right. There's some
that's a big and cool advantage, right? There are things we've discovered, right? So I like those things. If we can manage to keep some of the positives that we've all learned in the last year and a half, that would be great as we all come back to coming together.
Now, a question about, I heard you talking about a GFA grading system for kids. Is that still happening? Kind of like the Royal?
You're right. So what we had been talking about was, and it's a little bit on pause, but we've done some work on it, was a graded repertoire for ensemble. Because Royal Conservatory has done such a fabulous job on the solo repertoire. I mean, it's the gold standard. I really, really appreciate what they've done. But there's not such a comprehensive list for ensemble. So we've kind of come in and out of how we're able to manage that. It's not such an easy project, but we are really actively trying to continue to work and support guitar education on the state level. And we're really excited by the number of all states that are starting to erupt across the nation. I think it's incredibly cool. At GFA, we've had, every year so now we're having these track days. One of our track days is education, where all the lectures are based on that, and we bring in leaders, and we have a happy hour where a lot of good connections are happening there. And out of that last happy hour in Miami 2019, I remember several beautiful developments. So I look forward to us hopefully being able to continue to connect people. I think that's one of the GFA's biggest role is connecting the people. We can't do it all, right? Like a national/international organization can't solve a local problem, right? A local challenge, local opportunity, right? Because we don't know the community and we don't have the people on the ground. But if we can continue to bring those people together and inspire them and give them models of other communities that have been successful, I think that's the best role that we can play. So continuing to, we have actually the next issue of Soundboard that'll be coming out is our guitar and education issue, which we do one per year, that always just has some great content to hopefully inspire the folks that are really leading the charge in their communities. So it doesn't happen without them. Every one of the communities in the US that has a substantial pre-college guitar education, there's a person or a group behind that, right? It didn't come from the state MEA saying, gee, we'd really like some more guitar. No, it comes from someone who's invested in it, taking it to the MEA. So how can we support those people and nurture those people who maybe are curious but don't have the experience themselves.
Yeah, in the San Jose area, actually, this was a lot of the work of the South Bay Guitar Society, and I had nothing to do with it. This was mainly Jerry Snyder with his books and bringing in like several schools in the East Side, and now some other schools in the South Bay area have really strong guitar classes too. And I was really impressed by what they were doing.
Yeah.
And do you want to give any shout outs? Because obviously Austin is amazing. And I know the Mid-Atlantic, sort of the Fairfax County, Virginia area is really amazing, but who else is doing great work in this space?
Yeah, I went to school in Fairfax County. So that was I love that you know that, the Fairfax programs. So when I was there, that was really the leader in the United States. And Fairfax inspires, this is Northern Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. The Fairfax County then inspired the adjacent county, which is Loudoun County. And I think Loudoun is one of the most impressive in the nation right now. They're completely amazing. And now the state of Virginia has an all-state, which actually I'm conducting the Virginia all-state this year, which I'm so excited about. So Virginia has a lot, Florida has a lot, Texas has a lot, Las Vegas has a lot. There are other places, right? But those are the ones to me that perhaps, because there's doing the work and then there's marketing the work, by the way. And some people do the work, but then don't put themselves out so much. But those are the ones that I think we hear about the most. I think the Cleveland Guitar Society also does a really beautiful job. St. Louis is doing a lot in schools, right? So there's different kinds of programs, and a lot of these programs that I've mentioned have very different, probably different goals, because they have different populations they're serving, right? Some are really just trying to get kind of arts exposure. Some are developing really high level programs. There's, a handful of, super high level private schools that, are kind of one-offs, but amazing when you get in there and think, how did this many amazing guitar players come out of one place? The one that pops to my mind is Albuquerque Academy in New Mexico. I mean, unbelievable. And they just, they've had amazing teachers there for a long time, and they've built a community within that school. One little private school. It's unbelievable.
How much of it has to do with, because Texas is great, because you can sort of trace it back to, Adam Holtzman and UT, University of Texas, Austin. And Florida, you could say, Bruce Holtzman in Tallahassee, and Fairfax, Virginia, because, Barwaco's there and Peabody's there. Does that have a huge effect on it?
So I would say, Fairfax, I don't think has anything to do with Barwaco, because they're really separate sides, and Manuel isn't invested in that pre-college area so much. And I would say the same for Florida. I don't know Florida so much, but I don't know if Bruce has anything to do with that, but it could be that Bruce's students do. Certainly in Texas, that is the case. Adam Holtzman, Matt Hensley studied with Adam Holtzman. Adam gets that community connection, then Matt comes along and builds his network. And there's a great community of support there. So in Austin, yes, that's the case. In Florida, I don't know. And in DC, they really are separate things, right? So I think the truth can be different for every story. And artistic personalities, like with Manuel in Baltimore with the BCGS, right? Like, so they've kind of built that side of it, the artistic side, but it's not so much in the schools. The school programs were in the Mid-Atlantic area. Really, Fairfax County was the first one, and it was one man. It was Glenn McCarthy, who started a guitar class, and then it built his program to the point where they needed 2 guitar teachers. So it was that, and then the neighboring high schools saw that and thought that was cool, and it was his energy. I think everybody in that area is really giving him that. He built it, right? And that's what I'm saying. And in Las Vegas, the same thing. Bill Swick did that in Las Vegas, right? So I think it's often one person behind it. It takes all the network of fabulous, amazing people around them, but it's often like, what is that spark, right?
I met Glenn McCarthy because I was a student in Boston at the time, and he wrote me an email saying, hey, we're bringing up these kids to Boston, and we're going to do some like a field trip or something, but we also want to play for somebody. And so I was a doctoral student, and so I coached them, and when I heard them, I thought, what the hell's going on? This is amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Yeah, and he wasn't a classical guitarist himself. He was a bass player and rock guy, and he really built something pretty fantastic.
Yeah, you're right. So that's okay. One sort of tangential thought when I was listening to all your interviews was I felt one of my failings was I tried to be too much solo, like not in guitar playing, but in how I approached the career in the industry. And I felt that was because of the nature of our instrument. But then guitar players need to work together because you can't do big things without collaborating. And I just wanted to throw that in there, and I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, sitting alone in a practice room, I actually really like it. I know a lot of people don't, but I really like it. But I actually feel so fed musically when I get to play with someone else. It's really difficult to do a solo career and an ensemble career together. I did that for a while. I was playing professionally in duo as well as solo. It's really hard to maintain both programs, at least it was for me with everything else that I have going in my life. But it sure was fun, and I do miss that professional chamber performance. But I love when I get an opportunity. If somebody asks me to play piece with them, if I can do it, I do it every time because it's super fun to make music with other people. And I think as soloists, that's something that we can lose sight of. And you learn a lot. I think in the study aspect, we have to study it, period. But in terms of, I'm now an adult and I'm theoretically out of my study mode. It's just fun. It's just fun.
One last question about the GFA publication. I heard you mention that there were sort of 3 tiers of the publication, kind of the soundboard is what I'm referring to. But you said there was a scholarly part, there was a players oriented, and then there was a kids. And is that still happening?
The kids is not, unfortunately. I loved it, but we, as an organization have never really had a great in with kids. And we were doing some amazing content for the kids. I absolutely loved what we were doing, but it just wasn't reaching a wide enough audience. And for the amount of energy that it took to put into it, and the cost that it took. So we haven't, I haven't given up on the idea, but it's kind of on the table right now while we try and figure out more how to reach more people with it. Yeah, but we do have our quarterly journal, which is I think for those serious enthusiasts, and we have the annual scholarly journal, which is a peer-reviewed journal.
Oh, I forgot one more thing about the GFA. The GFA TV, because I watched the most recent one. It was fun. The meme, guitar meme. Yeah. So where did that come from?
So, so we started GFA TV last year with a desire that really grew out of our 2020 virtual convention and realizing how nice it was to stay connected with our members throughout the year. It was that combined with wanting to find ways to support all these classroom guitar teachers who were, holy cow, man, that's a job last year. Yeah, my job wasn't easy, but I really feel for those people who 5 days a week had to be in front of the camera for 6 hours a day, entertaining and educating a bunch of high school kids. I don't know how they did it, really. And so it was our way of trying to support those teachers with weekly content. So last year we did weekly content once a week. We did 2 episodes, one for the beginner level and one for the intermediate / advanced. Let me just say that was a lot of work to present 2 episodes every week for the entire academic year. We did it. The quality varied. It inevitably, it's like some were like, wow, that was an amazing segment. Did you see that? And some were like, okay, yeah, that was okay. And then the production value varied dramatically as well, because, honestly, if you're getting me to do it, all you're going to get is me and my iPad, because that's all I got. I don't have anything else. Some teachers really did amazing jobs with, they would send in already edited videos. It's like, wow, with, cuts, and they put, things would pop on their screen. I'm like, you guys are amazing. And then some people, really were even less tech than me, which is hard to imagine, but, and they maybe just didn't have a bad lighting in their room. So it was all over the place. Right. So our goal this year, okay, most of us are back in person instruction, so we don't really feel like we need to give an episode every week. but how can we maintain the connection? So now we're looking at 1 or 2 a month and trying to, kind of, there's a lot of companies out there that we don't want to be a competitor of the great companies out there, like Tone Base, for example, that are doing a lot of really great content and that are subscription based. We don't need to compete with them. What we want to do is really just provide a way for people to maintain a connection with GFA, and some personality driven, some access driven information. It's going to be a variety of things, and also trying to connect maybe with some of the local communities in the US that bring so much to the table. So the first episode, so the host for this period is named Zeno. Zeno is actually one of my students from Cal State Fullerton, and he's an Instagrammer guy, and you can see that in his presentation. So he brings kind of a youthful presentation, which is kind of fun. And he just came out and asked me, we talked for a while actually, and then our executive producer Ryan Ayers kind of went in and picked the things that he found most interesting and put it together. But yeah, it's really Ryan and Zeno kind of at this point kind of brainstorming what would be something fun to talk about for the next episode. I think they did a great job for the first episode.
So Zeno was the one that was he was interviewing you.
Yeah.
And he was the one hosting kind of the guitar meme thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
I thought that was great. I thought that was fun.
Yeah, the meme contest, it was pretty fabulous. But I told Zeno, I don't get memes most of the time. My kids are showing me memes, and I'm like, what? Why is that one funny? I'm too old, I think. So yeah, I got some of them, but I don't get them all. So.
It's all right. We want to appeal to different demographics.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So the last thing I wanted to just talk about, because you've said I was really touched by this about your career and mom, and you were talking about mom guilt and trying to balance family and career, and it reminded me of something Jon Stewart spoke about after he had retired from the Daily Show, and he said the difference between happiness and joy. So happiness was winning a Peabody, whereas joy was dropping off your knucklehead kids at school and picking them up every day. Yeah. And yeah. And so many questions around this, but one of them would be, what do you think, what do you hope your kids will see and take away from you seeing mommy on stage and president of the GFA, all this kind of stuff?
Yeah, so my oldest daughter is a freshman in college now, and she's a communicator, and she has actually, from, I'm gonna say, at least age 10, been very clear with me that she is happy that I love what I do. And that wasn't me putting it to her, it was her seeing it. She came with me a lot to school. She would come to concerts with me. She would see me talking to my students. She would come see me play. When GFA was around, she would come. She's actually through a couple GFAs. She was one of our volunteers. She's been here at the house when I have GFA staff over and we have our meetings. She sees me working, and she sees how it gives me joy. And what she, from a pretty young age, was, we live in a nice area where actually most of the moms here don't work. And, she, occasionally I'll apologize for, I'm sorry, I can't be there. I can't pick you up. I can't be at this thing at school. And she has always very quickly said, it's okay. I'm glad that you do what you like to do. She said she actually, for herself, I couldn't then and still can't imagine now, she can't imagine building her life around her children. Of course, we do that. It sounds bad, right? But having your children be the only thing that gives you satisfaction, right? I have to have satisfaction for myself too, right? My kids are the central part of that satisfaction, but actually me being happy with me and being interested in using my mind creatively and productively, and hopefully making certain things better in the area in which I work, is hugely important. So my oldest daughter really gets it, and fully, yeah, there's zero, my kids do not make me feel guilty. My perceptions of what a mother should be, and societally, that makes me feel guilty, but it's not my kids. They're kind of amazing about it. And I think this is something that I look forward to seeing evolve, is societally what we expect of those gender defined roles, that in terms of parenthood. I think balance is really healthy. I'm not sure I always model that, but I'm working on it.
Well, children are very perceptive, and I
Mhm.
don't think what you said sounds bad at all. I think it's honest, and I
Mhm.
think that's what comes across.
Yeah.
So, here's a random thought,
Uh-huh.
because you spoke about meringues in the Florida Guitar Foundation, and
Yeah.
the host asked you about your favorite dessert or something like that. Here's a random thought, because do you know a chef named Marco Pierre White?
No, I don't.
And the way you spoke about meringues, you said meringues with peaches, right?
When you just said meringues right now, it's like, oh yeah, with a little vanilla ice cream and some peaches, that'd be fabulous. I don't remember what I said in Florida, but that was immediately where my brain went right now. Yeah.
Okay, I think that's what it was. And
Yeah.
the reason I bring up Marco Pierre White was because I took a lot of inspiration from food. And one of the things was, I remember watching a sushi chef one day, and how precise they were in just their technique and their presentation. And I thought, after having that food, I felt sloppy in the way I played. And so, and I love watching chefs cook. And Marco Pierre White, in one of these episodes, he shows a dessert called the Knickerbocker Glory, and it's one of these British desserts with tinned fruit and meringues and ice cream, and just it's like an old school kind of a dessert, almost like where you would get out of a diner, I guess. I don't know. But that was the first thing I thought of. But the way Marco described it, and I hate canned fruit, but the way he described it sounded delicious, because it sounded like there were layers upon layers, and it all came together in this really, really beautiful kind of a tall glass kind of a thing. So
fabulous.
anyways, that's a random tangent.
Yeah.
Okay, so here are some questions from my students. And Giselle wanted to know, if you weren't a musician, what would you have pursued?
So, if the question was if I wasn't a guitarist, the answer is I'd be a cellist. The question, if I wasn't a musician, is a little bit harder for me to answer, but honestly, I feel like I could be one of lots of things. There was a point early in my 20s where I thought maybe I would stop playing because I wasn't really sure that I was good enough. And I had just moved to Los Angeles, and I was like, I went to a job temp agency just to get a job. And they sent me on an interview with a marketing agency, like an advertising agency, excuse me. And it sounded pretty fascinating, actually. I think I could have loved advertising or design or architecture or it definitely would have to have a creative element. I would not be an accountant, I'll say that. But I think anything like that in the creative world, I could be actually still, if I broke all my hands tomorrow, both of my hands,
Sure.
and I had no more capacity. I think I could find lots of things that I would find pretty interesting. I'm just always looking for the next creative challenge. That's all.
Okay. Kevin wants to know about imposter syndrome.
Mm.
Did you have it? And what did you do to overcome?
Yeah, big time. I actually remember hearing a celebrity on, I don't know, Letterman or something, talk about a recurring dream they had that I had been having for 10 years. And that their shrink told them it was imposter syndrome. I was like, yeah, I think that's what it is. That I had this recurring dream that I actually didn't graduate high school, that, I was missing a class and I had to go back. And in the dream, like I couldn't find my locker, or if I found it, I couldn't remember the code to get in. And then I couldn't find my class, and then I wasn't going to graduate. Right. And I think it was all, this was probably pretty close as I was getting time around the GFA, and I was developing as a performer. and I was getting opportunities, but yeah, it was just scary, right? And and I think it actually got worse right after winning the GFA. Actually, that was like the hardest. It's like, oh, good God, now I'm the GFA winner. Are you kidding? GFA winners are amazing. Like, I'm not amazing. Like, how the hell did that happen? What, oh my God. Right. And the truth is, I had prepared for it. I had earned it. I had been on the path. Why was it so shocking? I think I never actually expected to win. Right. But I had done everything right, and I deserved to win, if I do say so myself, right? Like, I played really well and I was ready for it. But going on the tour afterwards was really hard. I felt like I had to keep proving myself. And sometimes when what I learned on the tour that was so invaluable, I was still learning, and I was still very much in trying to prove myself. And I had to realize, now I'm done. Now I play the pieces that I play well, that I want to learn something from. I don't have to book my program, with 80 minutes of the hardest repertoire out there to prove how completely amazing I am. Because actually, when I do that, I probably won't be so amazing, because I'm not able to practice 8 hours a day anymore. Right. So I think, the thing I learned on the tour, while I was on the tour, I was also my first year of having a job. So I would fly out, play, 3-4 concerts, fly back, teach 2 days, fly out, fly back. I didn't have a day off for, 6 months, easy.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't practicing like I was before. And yet I had chosen this incredibly high degree of difficulty program that required the same level of practice. So I actually, on my tour, I felt like I didn't represent myself as well as I should have, because I wasn't programming it for the level of practice that I had at that point in my life. So I continued to learn on my tour. It's like, oh, so every once in a while, when I get to go back someplace that I played the tour, I always feel so much better now, because I'm way better now than I was then, right? Because I learned about what I can and can't do. I'm a better player. So how I got over imposter syndrome, I don't know. I don't feel like I have it anymore. I mean, all of us have self-doubt to some extent, but I no longer have that nightmare. I don't know. I think persistence, you persist, right?
And going back to what you said, putting in those hours.
Hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Althea, she's a music ed major. What advice do you have for aspiring musicians?
Hours. Beyond the hours really matter. And one of the things that I talk to my students about, a lot of times they don't want to spend the hours in the practice room, because I didn't really want to put myself in the room as much as I needed to until I was about 24, right? So number one, I want younger students to realize that it's normal if they're not enjoying the practice yet. It took me a little while to understand how to do it, but keep trying, keep talking to different people. Oh my God, I find practice so boring. I don't even know what to do. I said, communicating about it helps it. But hours really matter. And then community connections. I think that's actually, once you're qualified to do the job, if you've been qualified, but all you've done is sit in your practice room, you have no opportunities. So by building those connections, number one, you learn from hearing others in your community. I learned a lot, what you said about going to GFA and not realizing how good your peers were. That was what I learned when I went to my competitions, the early competitions I went to. It's like, oh, that's how I have to play. Okay, back to the practice room, right? So when you go out into the community, you realize the standards to which you need to meet. You get inspired, and then you also make some connections that can lead to opportunities down the line. So do the work and build the connections.
Beautiful. Okay, Jackie, have you ever explored other styles of guitar?
Yes, I love listening to all kinds of music, but the truth is I actually don't enjoy very much playing other kinds of music. So I did play in a rock band. We played in high school. We played like classic rock. I was not very good, and I mostly kept my amp turned most of the way down. And for me, honestly, that was a social experience. I just enjoyed hanging with the people, but I wasn't very good at the rock part of it, probably because I never practiced it either. But so I did play in a rock band for a short stint, and I also played in a jazz band, in our high school jazz band. 1 or 2 years, I can't remember. I replaced there was a guy, now I can't remember if he was 1 or 2 years ahead of me, who was a fabulous jazz guitarist. And when he graduated, there was nobody coming up behind him. They're like, Martha can do it. But I love jazz, but I don't like to play it. So I think in part because I'm not good at it, right? And there's only so many hours in the day, and I can't put in the time to be good at it. So I'd really rather listen to somebody else do it. But I appreciate the music a lot.
Yeah, that's my feeling with jazz and flamenco. I realize how on the bottom I am. That I don't have hours to do it.
Nope. And it's
Yep.
not fun to do it badly for me, right?
No, knowing how, yeah. Okay. A couple of quick fire, I hope. Richard asks, what was the most difficult piece to learn?
Un tiempo fue Itálica famosa, Rodrigo.
Oh God, okay.
But it's just, that's difficult. That was difficult technically for me. It's a one-trick pony though. So I mean, I just remember that at the time being like, I don't think it would intimidate me the same today.
Yeah, concerto madrigal was intimidating, that fast movement. Yeah. John asks, what are you most excited about your life right now?
Great question. About finding balance. I'm excited about finding balance. And
okay. Jessa asks, if you had a chance to meet a famous guitarist, dead or alive, who?
Interesting. I'm gonna go with Bream. I saw him perform once, but I never met him. And I think he'd be fascinating.
I want to share two little anecdotes about Bream. I've never seen him live, and because I was a student in Taiwan at the time, but I did see on one of those concert programs that, oh my God, Julian Bream's coming. And by the way, for everybody who's never been to Taiwan in the 90s, it's like there were like 5 guitarists you could buy CDs of: Williams, Bream, Russell, Romero's, and Fernandez, something like that. Not much more. Like you couldn't even find Barwaco or Fisk, or it's like, anyways, you couldn't find a lot of stuff. So when Bream was coming to Taiwan, it was like the entire community was so excited. And then a couple months later, we discovered that he canceled the concert. It's like, oh, it was heartbreaking. It was because it was one of those rare opportunities from Taiwan we could hear someone of that caliber. And the second little anecdote was sort of to share with the audience. So I studied with Elliot Fisk, and one time I was at Elliot's house. Julian Bream had written Elliot a handwritten letter, and this was in the early 2000s. So email was clearly an option, but no, Julian Bream wrote Elliot some like 4-page handwritten letter, and it kind of looked like the font that you saw on the ring of The Hobbit, that kind of elven font. It was such beautiful handwriting. So anyways.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Jessa also has this question. Out of all your performances, which one do you consider the most memorable?
I mean, could be based on hall or people or moment. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Certainly winning GFA was quite a moment. I had a concert just in fall 2019 in China, in Shanghai, at this grand theater with a big program of folks and 2,000 people in the audience. That was like one of the most dramatic settings in which I've performed. Well, in terms of a concert hall, but one of the most interesting moments was at a festival in Ecuador, we played in the city, and then they took us out and we played in the country. Like literally they built a stage in the middle of nowhere. There were cows went roaming around. Those are some of the ones that come to mind.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. All right. We got the last one's a really silly one.
Okay.
Well, I think it's silly. Kelly wants to know, would there ever be an exception for you to do a wedding gig again?
No. Wow. Barely for my sister or something, but probably not. My sister's married, so I think we're covered, but no, really, I hate playing weddings. I love hearing good music at weddings. I absolutely, yeah. We don't pay wedding musicians enough. That's all I know, because that for me is just, I hated that work. So yeah, more power to all the people that do the wedding gigs, because that's, yeah, that good question. But I'm thinking, yeah, it would have to just be somebody mega special in my life. And even then, I'm not sure. I might just buy them a really nice present instead, or pay for them to have another musician.
I responded to Kelly. I said to Kelly, I've played a lot of weddings, and I think I know what Martha means. And I said to Kelly, if I had to guess, maybe Martha would say maybe her kids. But
yeah,
even then,
yeah, I want to enjoy the day, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's a different thing to play a tune that I would do for my children, of course, right? If they really wanted that. I don't know, they've heard a lot of guitar in their lives. But to like proper play for the wedding, forget it. Somebody else can do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right, Martha, thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so again, the South Bay Guitar Society is presenting your concert on October 9th, 2021, and I'll link the stuff in the thing below.
Perfect.
Yeah, Martha, I look forward to seeing you next week.
Nice chatting with you. Okay,
Thanks so much.
See you next weekend. All right,
Okay,
take care.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.